morning, everyone, and welcome to Talking Horses, presented by Saratoga Water. She's Sarah Elbadwi. I am Andy Serling. It is a gorgeous day, and a happy 4th of July to everybody, and you too.
And you as well.
Thank you.
You're not as patriotic dressing, but I will forgive you.
I am a true patriot.
That is true.
But I did not have any red. Red, but you are really with
there's
the whole
always
thing.
blue,
You could have
there's
colored your hair
white.
blue or something, and pulled
Do
the
you
whole
think
thing
that
off.
would have gone over really well?
I'm not saying it wouldn't or would have. I'm just saying you could have done it.
You
could
always get the couple of hairs
I got a
left.
little going on here, yeah.
I would do it if you
little
would.
less dye. If I would do it, it would probably help things with you, But
I don't know.
You ever have blue hair?
No, actually.
Really?
I've done some
Not
other
one
colors,
of those?
but not blue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got a lot to talk about. 11 races, great card, beautiful weather, and Naira bets. Use the promo code bonus200. Keep in mind, we are still, you might not believe it by looking, we're still at Aqueduct, but bonus 200. Use the promo code, and we will. It's a circuitous route. I saw, by the way, Glenn Kozak was showing me some pictures of the sod being laid down in the turf course at Belmont. It looked very cool. Yeah, very, very cool.
Watching grass grow.
I'll tell you, that is an amazing job those guys are doing there, and everybody's really excited. But getting the sod down there, and I can't even imagine how long that must take. Anyhow, bonus 200 will match the $200 of your initial deposit. Play through Naira bets, bet any track, anywhere, anytime. We have Saturday contests, including a BCBC seat, something that was a much debate, but there is a BCBC seat and cash prizes, $300 buy-in. Flavian's not playing, but he will be participating in the races. Get more information. You have until post time tomorrow at nairabets.com/contests. Money back guarantee. Get your $10 win back if your horse runs second or third in the Belmont Derby at Saratoga. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be disappointed if my horse runs second or third, but you get a $10 win back, second or third, Belmont Derby coming up as race number 9 of our 11 race card. We have a cross country big 5. This is really, I don't even know if we really have one, but I think Eddie just makes it up because he loves it. 2 at Horseshoe Indy to start it off. Then 3 stakes in a row here, races 8, 9, and 10. All starts at 3:08, America's Day at the races. As once again, we're not in Saratoga. We're just fooling you and saying we are. We are on from 1 to 3. We'll be on YouTube after that, 4 to 4:30. Then there's actually no race between 4:30 and 5. We'll be on Big Fox at 5 to 6, and FS1 to close things out 6 to 7. 4 stakes from 5 to 7. Big Fox 5 to 6, FS1 6 to 7. Race number 1. I don't know where you went here. We'll see in a second. See, you and I have a very substantial disagreement in this race.
Well, to be determined.
We're going to take we have a substantial disagreement. It doesn't mean that one of us is right and one is wrong. We may both be wrong. But my feeling is, as we take a look at the race that Miss Motley finished second and Vino Rouge finished third, I don't know how anyone can possibly take Miss Motley over Vino Rouge based on this trip. Vino Rouge was 3 wide, on top of the pace the whole way. The pace was coming apart badly at the end. She still managed to hold on for third, whereas the one horse, Miss Motley, saved ground the entire way and angling out to get the second. So we disagree. I think I like Vino Rouge, and I don't like Miss Motley.
So based on this race, we don't disagree. I think Vino Rouge ran much, much better and was on top of the pace and never got over to the rail, never saved ground at any point in that race. But I look at the equipment change for her, as well as another horse that likes to be forward and here towards the outside. And I just wonder if she's going to get the same kind of trip now coming in second off of the bench and being as forward as she was. While she might have the opportunity to save more ground, I just don't know that this race is going to set up for her quite as well. And Miss Motley does not need to be that far back as she was in that last start. So I thought that they might be getting slightly different trips this time around.
Okay, I'm not going to try to anticipate trips in this situation. I like the 5, but you do like Miss Motley. I think the interesting horse of Chad Brown's is the 6, Diamond Vega. I don't know if she's good enough. That's my problem. If she had a race that was a little bit better, not that there are any killers in here, if she had a race that was a little bit better, but her last ride was, and I'm partly to blame for it in an odd, obtuse way, was absolutely preposterous.
Are you taking credit for bad rides now?
No, it's not the ride. It's a longer story.
Okay.
Anyway, regardless, this horse ran extraordinarily well and should have won that race very easily. Having said that, I just don't know if that field was very good.
I worry that she might just be a little bit too slow, and she's a horse that's going to be bet on connections a bit as well, coming in as kind of a fresher face, still fairly lightly raced in the States. But I agree. I think that ride was one last time that certainly did not do her any favors whatsoever, and she is a little bit interesting if you're looking for somebody else.
Yeah, we should talk about the inner turf. I think the Mellon was very fair in the two races we ran because Batula does look like the speed, and John Velasquez should be able to clear from the outside. I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't know how much push, is Awesome Check going to go in this race. So they could move a little bit more. I'm not absolutely sold that it was a big inside track yesterday because the right horse won, the favorite won the stake, and they crawled in the last race. So while there's obviously some evidence that saving ground, rails down, the way the races were run, that being inside was a good thing, I'm not convinced yet. I didn't do track trends because I kind of wanted to see today and tomorrow before I made a real definitive opinion on the turf courses.
And
So
I'm with
we'll
you
see.
on that. And I think that just I'm a little tired of Awesome Check. I know that she's going to be a horse that they're adding blinkers today, and she was in an absolutely paceless merry-go-round race last time, but she just hasn't won in a while.
I agree, but I thought she ran fine last time, and both the races this year I thought were good. I prefer others, but she can win. The Skylerville race number 2 has been for many, many years the opening day feature here. Moving it around, put some more space between this and the Adirondack to make it easier for horses to run, perhaps in both of them. And we'll start with Evolution down in the rail, a horse I have 4th and you have 3rd off of the win. I don't have anything against this horse. I'm just wondering if there are some better horses in here, but I don't think that she's impossible.
And she at least has shown some good early speed, whereas other ones of these haven't shown the same necessarily adeptitude to be able to be as forwardly placed as she has so far. While they have run some faster races, we have seen a couple of them at least pass horses or sit in more of a stalking type of position. She is the one that has at least gone out to that early lead, but just getting the rail in here, I sort of wanted to see it again, and that figure did not come up in a particular manner to suggest she's going to be some overwhelming layover in here.
So why don't you talk about King Solver?
I liked the race that this one came out of, and I felt as though she was just always sort of getting a wide trip and seemed as like she was a horse that needed that first start. Looking at stats for Rudy Brisset in dirt sprints here at Saratoga, he does very well over the past 5 years. He's winning at 27%, 60% in the money, 415 with a $3.71 ROI. And with 2-year-olds alone, it is a very small sample size, but he is 1 for 4 with 2 of those 4 finishing in the money and a positive ROI there. I just thought that this one was going to be able to save some ground and sit a little bit closer than a couple of the others that we have seen.
Yeah, I obviously agree that this horse is a major player in here. I sometimes have trouble reading Rudy Brisset from one race to the next, but I have absolutely no disagreement with you on that. Now, the horse who's the morning line favorite goes out for the ever-dangerous Cassie Barn, and Mark's numbers in Saratoga last year looks like he's ready for this meet as well. He's been outstanding, but we show the replay, and as you look at the replay, you're going to realize that she's running on a different surface. And I just, I know there's dirt pedigree, to be fair, but I'm not betting a horse, Sarah, and I think you agree, as the favorite in this race based on a win on the turf.
And he's a trainer that switches surfaces for his horses pretty frequently relative to some others, but looking at turf to dirt and sprints with 2-year-olds, he's 1 for 36 over the past 5 years.
Yeah, now on the other hand, I would want to look up that sample and see how many were coming off maiden wins. I think what Mark is very good about doing, I think one of the reasons he's a smart guy, it's getting it over with early. There's not, what is he missing here? You know what I mean? There's no turf stake for him to run in.
Sure.
So he's going to find out very early if she's a dirt horse. If she's not a dirt horse, then it doesn't really matter. But he's going to find out here, and I think it's a very astute move. The horse could finish last, and I still think Mark did the right thing running her here.
I think it's the right choice for him.
What race was there for her? So
Right.
I think he's smart in running her. I just don't
just
want
a
to bet
betting
her, and neither do
perspective.
you, as the favorite.
Exactly.
So she can win here, and she's actually. I also, Debbie Oxley owns this horse, Jack Oxley's wife, and I actually ran into her. Belmont Week, and they're just terrific people, and she was so excited about this horse winning because it's all her family, it's all horses that she had.
Oh,
so
that's
that's pretty
great.
cool. So I always root for Debbie and Jack to do well,
Very
but
rewarding.
I'm going to bet against you regardless of that. I am kicking the 6 Simone, and it's funny because you have the 5-second, David Aragona likes the 5, and I like of the 2 horses, and I had bet Miss Magical last time because the reason I agree that Miss Magical ran well when she got outside and all that stuff, that race was falling apart.
It was.
That was my problem with that race.
She also didn't break. So I wonder if she's a horse that is going to have a slightly different position today and not be the one that's coming late and with the flow of the race as she was just second best last time. It seemed as though she wasn't that quick out of the gate and then was sort of taken back.
I just
along
thought she
the
had no
inside.
speed. I didn't think she got left.
I feel as though she was one that didn't break all that well, but
I just thought she was,
yeah.
and maybe it's a function of a first-time starter not knowing what she was doing, whereas
Maybe she
Simone,
broke well and then was quickly taken out of there. I mean,
she just dropped out. I don't think it was Flavia taking her out as much as I think she kind of dropped out of the
yeah.
race.
Well,
But
she's not on the rail this time, so that
yeah,
too
yeah, yeah.
might
No,
help.
that's fine. I listen. I'm not going to be shocked by anything in here. Even Gary Contesto 2 years ago won this
Yeah,
race with a
Becky.
first-time starter,
Becky's Joker.
Bayo Pon. This field, listen, there's no killers signed on in here. As
No.
far as Simone, I thought this horse ran okay last time out. I wondered if the race could have been a little bit better. This horse broke slow, didn't know what was doing, was shuffled back going into the turn, re-rallied and ran. I thought Simone was the one I wanted of the George Weaver second. We disagree on that. We'll see what happens in the Skylerville, which I think is actually kind of a fun race because there's nobody in the race where you say, well, this horse is going to win if runs her race, because you don't really know who they are. As far as, by the way, I want to mention that Echo Sound in yesterday's Victory Ride got a 101 buyer, and we knew that was a fast race. To be honest, I would argue it would be higher, not lower. If somebody were to say to me that number's a couple points off, and I would go upside. That horse was
Impressive.
super impressive
Extremely
yesterday. Rusty
impressive.
Arnold has a very, very nice filly in her. We'll see her in the test. Race number 3. Let's start with War Stride, who you and I both have second in here. And I have no problem with War Stride. This horse's career has been turned around for George Weaver, and I just think he's the horse to beat. But like you, I put him second.
Well, I think his last two races, looking at them, they are a step forwards from what we've seen from him in the past. And I think the 1-2 back, he was helped a little bit by the racetrack with being forwardly placed and being towards the inside. And then last time he's running into Baby Yoda, and he runs very well at a price that day. But those are times that are playing quickly. We see this around this time of year, Baby Yoda breaking that track record. I don't think anybody's going to mistake him for Coronado's Quest, who previously held it. It's just a function of whether and how the track ends up playing over time. But
Run some
he
fast
still,
races,
he
Baby
still has
Yoda.
run quickly before, so it's not as though it's a race that came out of nowhere. With War Stride, I just think that you missed out when he was a slightly better price last time for sure, and even the time before that. Now he's going to be too short for me.
All right, sell me on Shadow Dragon, who I don't get at all.
I think that he's one that cutting back shouldn't have any problems with that, and I like that he was that non-winning type of horse who would just always be running too late and show up. They've completely changed around his running style of having him be a horse that can be more forwardly placed, and I think that's going to help him a lot on the cutback and distance today. With blast out
You think
winners,
he can be forwardly placed in this race?
no, I don't think he needs to be, but I like that he was going the mile distance because he was such a deep closer prior to that.
Okay.
I think he'll be a little bit
We
more
disagree,
tactical
it's
than he
fine.
has been. But looking at Bill Mott with last out winners cutting back at Saratoga on the dirt, it's a very small sample size, but he does do well. 2 for 5, 5 for 5 in the money. They've all finished first or second. $4.44 ROI. Past
Okay,
5 years.
I don't get this horse at all, but listen, I mean, he'll be a price in here, so good luck. Okay, well,
How
we'll
much
see.
of a price?
Listen, I'm not it is not my cup of tea in this horse. What did you think of yesterday's dirt track?
I thought that you wanted to be forward in some races, but it seemed to be more towards even as we went on throughout the day. What
Really?
do you think?
I think I don't think that horses were able to close on
No.
yesterday's track. I don't know that it was a speed track, but I think horses were struggling, making up significant ground for the most part in the races, even when the paces were contentious. So I worry a bit about that. And I like Magnolia Midnight. We'll take a look at it. This horse is the speed. I know this horse is cutting back, but this horse is quick. And I think Manny's supposed to just come popping out of the gate with this horse and try to wire the field. And I'll tell you something. This horse runs fast figs. I like this horse today. I think he can wire the field. And the other thing is, I didn't really like anybody else that much, I don't know what to do with Over and Ollie because he never runs on dry tracks, on the rail.
Yeah.
He's a bit of an enigma in this race. And obviously he's run some fast races, and he's won here as well. I don't know what to get from him, and I'm just hoping this horse can wire the field. I'm 5s and 6s in here.
Yeah, I think he's naturally possibly faster than Ridgewood Runner, so that'll help him. But he
definitely
is the
faster
one that's
than him.
cutting back in distance, whereas Ridgewood Runner has been more at these sprint type distances and facing some tougher.
Well, he seems to have lost his speed a little bit, but we'll see what happens in race number 3. Race number 4, going a mile and a 16th in here, and talk about Organite.
It seems as though there's a lot of weight on this horse, and I
Yeah,
added to it.
He has no chance.
I know we've really ruined it for him, but a horse that was trying the turf for the first time, had plenty of turf pedigree last time, and I thought that just got a little bit keen in that race where the pace was totally coming apart towards the end. And Ashbury Park, who ended up winning that race over Belmont weekend, just seemed absolutely much the best in that field. So with this one, I just thought that he was one that he's getting Dylan Davis back again. It seemed as though he ran well enough in that spot to try this spot, only the second time routing. I know that he saved some ground in there, but he did have some traffic trouble as well and just seemed to
I
be
thought Dylan
uncomfortable.
kind of, I thought he could have done a better job keeping this horse in better position in the race. It was a race that was run in the rain, which I also think could have been a possible problem for him. I love this pedigree. I love the dam, so I'm going to take a shot with this one, but I'm not. I'm not convinced. It's a funny race because Tom Collins is the morning. Actually, Durand is. Why are we supposed to like Durand in here? The 8.
Connections.
Okay, but what about this horse's race makes you want to bet him as the favorite?
I don't.
Yeah,
I mean,
I listen.
you don't either,
I
but
always root for Peter, and I hope he does well, but I'm just not a fan. Now, Vintage Vino, we'll take a look at the second place finish here at the end of the meet last year. And while he's a horse that maybe has run better races going longer, it's not clear. This horse has some ability in here, and I mean, he does have the best turf race of anybody. I know it was longer, but he was much the best in July 20th. And we saw the winner of that race come back with a huge win. He lost in this race to Right to Vote, who was, really ready to run off the layoff. So this is a horse that, from a talent standpoint, I don't know if he's going to do a layup. He's run the best race of anybody.
he has. I just worry if, and I agree that it remains to be seen how much is the inside beneficial for the inner turf. He is posted towards the outside in here, but I do think that he's
Jose
the
will
one
drop
that
back. He could get to the fence.
he
just
is the
drop
one
back.
that is sort of the most accomplished turf horse in this field. He's going to be a fair enough price
Right.
today versus the last 2 times he's run. So
Yeah.
he has a shot for sure. It's just horses that have had a couple of opportunities. I wanted to stay away from in my top 2.
I'm surprised that David made Durand 3-1, and Roger, who has Flavian Pratt. Nothing against Manny at all, but aren't they going to gravitate? And we'll take a look at Roger's one turf race. Aren't they going to gravitate a little bit more A towards the inside and B to a one that Pratt is riding for Chad? I mean,
and
I don't.
one that's had less chances.
He's got such a significant difference that he's
On turf.
probably right. Because he seems to, it's not like they're 3-1 and 4-1 or 3-1 and 7-2. They're 3-1 and 6-1. I actually thought this horse ran pretty well in that race overall. I mean, I don't think he's a superstar, but that was actually a decent enough field. I think you could argue that race, the winner was okay, and these were all right, these horses.
I don't love that race from him, but I think that it's one that could certainly win here. He was running into
Right.
a first-time starter that wired the field, and he never got over to the rail at any point during that race. And I just wonder then why go to the synthetic? Was it a situation where
I know.
weather
I it's very easy to guess why. I didn't look to see if the race was off the turf. Maybe it was. I'm wondering if Chad Brown wanted to run a horse twice down in Gulfstream in that turf course. So I'm guessing that, and I didn't, obviously, I had better things to do than bothering with an idiotic question like that. But I think there's probably somebody said that unless it was rained off. I saw Graham Motion last night. We're talking about your lordship.
Yeah.
He says he trains well. I did not like. I told him I didn't love this horse's race last time, but Graham is very dangerous with these Europeans,
He
particularly.
is, and I like this one being one that possibly we often see that European edge come in here. We're going to see a couple of them later on in the Belmont Derby. And for this horse to be entered in a spot like this rather than being overtly aggressive with him as they maybe could have been, I think that he's just one that makes a lot of logical sense.
All right, we'll break after 5 and come back with the pick 6. The fifth race was completely and totally shattered by scratches. Talk about frantic.
Yeah, with what's left of this field, I just thought that this one maybe didn't appreciate the wet track last time, that muddy surface that was sealed at Belmont at the Big A. If he can run something a little bit more similar to his other dirt race over a fast main track, yes, it was in for the $50,000 tag, but I think that with what's left here, that race fits well with the rest of this group, and he just seems as though he's one that could at least be somewhat forward and has some proven dirt form.
The problem with, he can win in this field, but the problem with that argument is he basically ran the same race last time he ran the D1. It just was a tougher field, right? Why was his last race worse?
He wasn't as forwardly placed, I don't think, from the...
Really? He was 6 lengths behind the first
half.
quarter and 3 lengths behind in the second race. So I'm going to disagree with that completely.
At the half. I mean, I think he was just one
Chasing a quitting horse in Pandemic Hero is a big speed who just ran off from him. But I don't
think
he
that
was
is
much
just
slower.
much better horses like Shoot the Nickel, who's more forwardly placed and has better speed, who finished second in that last race. I mean, there's just a vast difference to me in the last field he faced versus this one today.
Right, I think he lost to a tougher field last time.
Yeah.
And it's a tougher field. I don't think he really ran worse on a wet track.
Okay.
I just think he ran a similar race. It was just too tough a race for him. I mean,
Okay.
this is
I mean,
obviously a
either way, this is very
severely
different.
depleted field. I mean, Tiote could be the favorite in here, and
Probably will be, right?
Tiote is flawed to say the least. I know he ran that big fig 2 back, but for the most of his career, this horse, is a Brad Cox horse that started out not getting bet and running okay. Now he's also run. He's also run fast enough to win this race, which is why we both have him second. But I'm not his biggest fan.
No, me either. And I think that just looking around, this is the one that most might gravitate to, is the horse that at least has been facing some tougher last time, ran here, ended up being a little bit wide, cutting back in distance. There's more of that case that I can make for this one that I think others will be making as well. But I just didn't want to take it a short price. He doesn't stand out by any means in this
He
group.
was in a race last time that was a great estate compared to this Hazarai. Enduring Spirit, I have a very simple opinion. Go to the lead, Kendrick. You're the lone speed. This horse is fast, and when this horse has been able to control a race, he has been much more effective in those races. You look at his 76 fig in his second start. You look at his 69 figure that day when he finished second to Silo Ridge, who'd be 1-9 in this field. So I'm just hoping Kendrick goes, and I don't want any of them. I mean, listen, the 4 can win, the 7 can win, but I just want this horse because, and frankly, I wanted to bet against Linda's horse. I'm sorry that horse scratched. Linda. All right. The pick 6, and the late pick 5, and the late pick 4, and all the other stuff after a quick break.
Horse racing? Check. Weekly promotions? Got 'em. Huge payouts? You bet. With Naira Bets. Download the app today and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime with live HD horse races, betting tips and tutorials, expert picks, and more. You bet with Naira Bets. Join now for a new member bonus at NairaBets.com.
Welcome back to Talking Horses. Sarah Albadwi and Andy Serling on an absolutely gorgeous 4th of July. Race number 6. Well, we both got scratched out. You liked Irish Goodbye. I liked Santini. So back to the drawing board, and you have scratched into the $425,000 Now You See Me, Now You Don't.
Yeah, this one coming in from Mike Maker, who isn't exactly known for having those first-time starters ready to roll on debut, especially the 2-year-olds. But looking at what's been condensed down in here, I like that this one does qualify for that condition in here with the restricted horses being a New York bred, so he doesn't have to be under the $60,000.
Public's going to like that too,
Yeah, I think they will. I think they'll be big fans of that one. But the favorite coming out of this race, at least the morning line favorite in Irish Goodbye, it just seemed as though this one had enough turf pedigree. There have been 3 winners from the foals to race. None of them won on debut, but there was one who did win her second start in Lady Dora, which was a turf sprint. So I just thought that this one, getting that benefit of staying towards the inside in here, could be ready.
There's a lot of good pedigree going back into the second dam and such, the Godolphin horses. So this horse has plenty of turf. And, with good magic, I was thinking a lot about the fact that he's been a very ineffective turf sire, and he's 5% with his turf sprinters. The problem with that stat is, first of all, he's a relatively young sire, and I don't like to get too carried away, in one year next to the next when they've had like 1 or 2 years. But also, people really aren't buying good magics to run in the turf, and I especially imagine in sprints. So the ones that end up in turf races and also turf sprints are probably just not very good. So I think you're getting the lesser good magics, who's been such a good effective sire, and they paid a lot, and there's plenty of pedigree. Now, it is worth noting that in Saratoga over the last 5 years, Maker's 0 for 14 with 2-year-old first-time stars in turf sprints with only 2 hitting the board. And given Mike Maker, you think of him a trainer winning on turf, but he's only 7 for 72 overall with a $1.55 ROI. So while he's not horrendous, he's not very good, especially by his standards.
That concerns me as well.
To ignore this horse in here would be awfully silly, and I think Mike likes this horse, so he'll probably run well. I went to Amelia Green. I was going to scratch into the 2, and I just thought I don't need to scratch into the favorite in here. I think this horse would have been favored regardless who was in the race. I don't know how you would. I'm sorry. I know David has 6 favorite. I don't see how a $425,000 yearling is not favored in this race. I think that's crazy. Amelia Green's horses are running. She had a first-time starter win at Aqueduct. I think on closing day, there's enough turf pedigree for me to take it. Mendelssohn's 14% with turf sprinters, so I just thought there was enough pedigree to take this horse. I didn't have much else. I see you have Mo Dodgy second, and Kevin Rice comes here with a purpose. I have no idea if this horse can run at all.
I don't either, but sometimes that experience is just so valuable at this stage of the game that we see these horses that have at least done this before be able to run much better second time out against some horses that have never had this kind of experience. So I thought that with Connections, like you said, they come here with horses
They're
that
sharp,
are
no
purposeful,
doubt.
with intention. Just having that little bit of experience could be helpful.
I thought Tom Orley's dangerous. I want to look at all the Tiz the laws. He's 18% so far. It's only 1 year, but there's a smidgen of pedigree. But on a sire side, this horse has pedigree. So, thought that horse would be dangerous. Race number 6, which will kick off the pick 6. The late pick 5 kicks off in race number 7. Let's start the conversation with Shadow Banking, who I have 3rd and 4th, the last race, and show you the replay. This horse actually did run really well in this race, Sarah.
He did. He doesn't get out all that quickly, but he ends up being far back early, and you can see he's being asked to have a little bit more position in this race, and just seemed like he was one that wasn't totally clued into what was going on here. We were dealing with a wet track that day in that off-the-turf race, and he just seemed to not appreciate being right in behind horses. But
Well,
now,
he wasn't right in behind him.
But
he was in a
now
different galaxy
he
behind
ends
him.
up starting his rally, going towards the outside in here, and I thought that he ran on very well in this spot while going wide, and you can see him really kick in and figure things out once he finally gets in the clear.
I thought that was a day you had a speed edge. Being inside was okay, and I thought he ran very well in this race. The problem is, how good do we think this race was? And this is a very dangerous race to be betting a horse that has 68 first time out, and he didn't know what he was doing, and Flavien was riding him early, and he just had no interest in being anywhere near. He'll probably be better today, but he better be better, because this has the look of a race where there's firsters, there's Fort Nelson coming off that layoff, who, is probably pretty talented. This is a very, very treacherous race. You've gone to the 2 Apalta, which I did hear there's a story on.
Oh, is there? Okay. Well, just the damn side precocity with this one. The 3 siblings all won their debuts, and they did so doing things a little bit differently for each one. One of them going a mile on the grass, another one winning a synthetic sprint, and then another a dirt sprint with an 87 buyer, that one senior officer. So there's that versatility in the pedigree as well for this one. And I just thought that looking at a horse like Shadow Banking, there are going to be some tougher horses in all likelihood.
It's very hard to believe this race is not going to be significantly tougher.
At least 1 to 2, if not 4 or 5
yeah,
horses
no,
that are much more difficult.
I completely and totally agree with you in here. You've also got Sabito, who is a half to obligatory,
yes,
and other real runners, so there's big pedigree for the other Mott horse. Fort Nelson is clearly dangerous in this race, and, the sooner entries go away, I mean, it's embarrassing. I was looking at some stats. I think there were 91 during a period of time this year. I think Craig put them up. 91 entries, 1As in NYRA, and the second highest track was 12 or 13. This is a disadvantage for the horse players, a disadvantage for everybody involved that this continues. But hopefully, and we think we're close to getting it changed. I don't want any part of the 1A in this race. This is not a knock on Amelia Green, and anybody thinks I'm knocking her hasn't listened to me, because I have a lot of praise for the job that she has done.
Absolutely.
I just wonder, because she wasn't on her own last year, and Todd probably had this horse, or this horse was on the farm, and I would think $1 million horse for this stable, Todd might have dibs or somebody else, and for Amelia to end up, I kind of wonder where this horse was as a 2-year-old. Now, it's also possible this horse never really got to the track, whereas the one Worthy Charge was a horse that was working extremely well here as a 2-year-old last year, and there had been a lot of talk about him being a real runner. Obviously, he got laid up, something happened, but he's coming back, he's working well, and I think Worthy Charge is going to run well in here, but because of the entry, I won't be able to bet, but I think he's going to be very tough in here.
Do you think he'd be more of a short price than the Rebellious Type, the 1A?
I think he'd be a bigger price if Rebellious Type wasn't in the race, so that's all I care about. It's bad value.
Yeah.
Whether it would be a point or a point and a half, I don't know, but it's definitely something. I don't think Rebellious, put it this way, what price do you think Rebellious Type would be on his own?
$1 million horse going out for the first time?
I think he would probably not be 20 to 1.
I don't think so.
Okay. Race number 8, the Manila. Manila is one of my all-time favorite horses. And, Manila, in his penultimate race, actually lost a 4-horse Baruch to Talakano, ridden by the great and legendary Angel Cordero. And then Manila proceeded to go to the Arlington Million, where he absolutely trounced Theatrical, who won, I think, 6 Grade 1s that year. One of them on DQ, which I'm still pissed off about, but I'll get over it at some point in my life. But yeah, I mean, and Theatrical was
Phenomenal.
a tremendous horse, and Manila just flicked him off like a gnat in the Arlington Million, and unfortunately was retired off of that. And he may have been one of the great American turf horses in my lifetime. He was a true great, that horse. Anyway, I don't have a big opinion against Zulu Kingdom, and with the scratches, he could well find himself on the lead in this race, and I think that's a cue. Thank you, Eddie. I picked against because I'm a masochist, but I think it's very likely that he's going to win this race.
I do too. And look, he is one that plans were changed a couple of times through no fault of his own with where he ultimately would end up running for his next start following that American turf win that we're taking a look at here. He's been extremely impressive in his 2 starts as a 3-year-old. He's the most likely winner, clearly, of this race. And I think that he doesn't have a big tactical disadvantage like some of the other types in here that might have been more impacted by a lot of the pace of this race.
Doesn't he potentially have a tactical advantage? I mean, he is, on the pace projector, the clear speed. Now, that doesn't mean he will be, but the pace projector has him in front.
I am hoping that a horse to his outside has different intentions, but I agree he could absolutely be on the lead if they want to go with it.
Yeah, I think it would be nuts to. I mean, I guess that Dale could go down the inside with Junior Alvarado and Maui Strong, and I think my horse can be a bit forward. We'll see what plays out. What's the story with Flat to the Mat?
Originally, I liked Straight Cash in this race, but seeing with scratches and a lot of the horses that could have been more forward, like Golden Channel, even though I don't think he had any shot to win, but could show some speed in here coming out, as well as Straight Cash and Uncatalyzed. Flat to the Mat, trying the turf in the Paradise Creek last time, he ended up finishing second at a big price, and I thought he got a juicy trip that day. But then looking at stats for Mike Maker, stretching out.
Got a good trip that day. That's what you mean?
Yes,
yeah, I agree.
Yes, I agree. So Mike Maker, stretching out on the turf. Right here at Saratoga with non-maidens, he does very well, especially with his in-the-money percentage. He's 17%, 44% in the money with a $3.96 ROI over the past 5 years. And with scratches, putting the blinkers on, I thought the intent with this horse coming out of a sprint race would be to have him be forward in here, potentially get over to the fence and save some ground and try to hold off a horse that's in all likelihood much better than him in Zulu Kingdom, as well as a couple of others in here. But I thought that he could end up getting a little bit of an edge at a price.
It'll be a giant price. Good luck. The 5 Reagan's Wit is clearly the other horse. It's interesting. Cherie scratched this horse, and this is the win at Pimlico, and I'll get to that in a second. But she scratched this horse. She didn't love late last week at Churchill, not particularly liking the track. Now, I have great respect for Cherie, but this horse won in an absolute bog on that Pimlico turf course, which it's not a bad thing they're not going to be racing on that course. I imagine they're redoing it with the redesign of the racetrack going forward. He was good, and but the problem is, and this is a word of warning to everybody, because of a horrendous miscalibration of the racetracks on Preakness weekend and listing them good. They were bogs. And there's a lot of horses running this weekend that took advantage of the bog that weekend, and I think Reagan's Wit ran such a better figure, I wonder if it had something to do with the horse condition, though he's good.
And that is a fair question to ask. And also, looking at that last race, whether he did end up benefiting from the course condition or not, I just don't like how green he was coming into this spot, where he ended up going in towards the rail and almost hit the rail at one point and just seemed to be a little bit goofy once he got himself out in front. And it's completely possible he's a horse that's just improved in general, but I just didn't like those antics coming in here.
He ran against Zulu Kingdom and finished just a neck behind him. They both had good trips that day in their 3-year-old races down at Tampa. As far as Tiz Dashing, he's just a horse I have a bit of a thing for. I think this is a horse that's kind of piled up less than terrific trips in his races. Now, I have a problem because I think the Woodhaven was not a very good race, and it was collapsing at the end. But of all the horses that were brought together at the end of the race, he's kind of the weirdest because he was a bit wide the whole way around the track. He was done top of the stretch. And I know the field came together a little bit, and it's a bit of an optical illusion, but it was just sort of a weird trip. And coupled with the kind of trips he had gotten prior to that, now he draws towards the inside. Javi's got the mount today. I just feel like he's a horse that's better than he's shown. Is he likely to beat Zulu Kingdom? No. Will I have a 4-2 exacta for more than my win bet on the 2? Yes. But I think his dashing for me, like your 8, is the interesting price. In the Manila, race number 9, the Belmont Derby. And for those wondering, this race has been 1.25 miles. Now, originally it was 1.125 miles race because it was originally the Jamaica that we used to run in the fall. And of course, as Richie will get mad at me if I don't correct that, the Jamaica used to be a mile dirt race for many, many years. Richie was joking yesterday, he has the most wins in the Jamaica because we were talking about something on the desk, and I think Lafitte was saying how should they be including the Jamaica stats, being that it's a very different race at different times. And Richie said, well, I'm the leader with 6 wins, so I don't want to change it, which I can respect.
It's a fair argument.
But 1.125 miles, so we go to 1 mile and 3/16 in the Saratoga Derby, so not to cut back for the second leg. Originally they were in distances that were equal to the Triple Crown races for this turf triple, which has some fun races. It's another discussion on the idea of creating turf stallions. I love the idea, which was really a brainchild of Martin Panza, to try to create these series and build up turf races for 3-year-olds to create turf stallions. I love the idea. I like innovation. It didn't work. People just don't want turf stallions.
It's not what we aim for.
Well, I don't understand it because, Millridge took a chance with Oscar Performance, and that worked out
Extremely
very well.
versatile.
I'm not sure why there isn't more interest, but there isn't. And there have been some good Europeans that there's no interest in. Anyway, so let's start with the American Turf, which we saw last race with Test Score and New Century, and I'll let you talk about the race and Test Score.
I was reading this article about how both New Century and Test Score look to be horses that are going to be extremely pace compromised in here, and I just thought that New Century is one that.
Who wrote that article?
I'm not going to say any names, but it was an article that I disagreed with because
Well, they're wrong.
I thought that Test Score and even New Century in the past were both capable of showing more forward position than they had, especially for New Century in that American Turf, where I don't think they're going to be totally up against it as far as the pace as much as your morning line favorite
I think
is.
the 5, yes, that's a great point, and I think the 5 can be right on the pace in here, and I know
don't
the
think the
speed
pace
is
is going to be
Tank, and
gigantically
my
fast,
friends
but-
in California like Tank. I think they're insane. I don't know how he can wire this field.
He's
And
not-
I think the time to Test Score should be sitting second.
Right. I
Unless
agree with that.
Luther shows more speed,
But
he's not that slow.
He's been getting out of the gate a little bit slow overseas too.
No, he hasn't.
No?
You were looking at the wrong horse if you think he's been
Okay.
getting out of the gate slowly. He
Okay,
is
then
not
never
a
mind.
horse that's had issues. I thought it was
Probably
actually
was.
interesting with him was he was a horse that was actually breaking very well in his races. So
I think I watched the synthetic one because it was a left-handed turn.
his
so
last
that's
2
fine.
races, he had no issues at the gate. Now, listen, Europeans could have no issues at the gate over there and come here and get left, but he has not had a problem. In fact, I actually wrote down broke very well in his last race.
Yeah, I think I was watching one a few,
Yeah,
a few
we'll
back,
get to
and
him
he
in
was
a
off
moment.
layoff,
But
so.
yeah, I'm with you. And well, I think the most important thing here is I don't really care that much about the race dynamics as much. I don't like the speed, but I think it's a valid conversation. They were inside, and it's important to note with Zulu Kingdom that he was out in the best part of the racetrack, and you did not want to be on the rail, and Test Score spent almost the whole race down inside, and New Century wasn't that far off of it for a lot of it, and I think they were both compromised by being inside. I am not New Century's biggest fan. I like Test Score more, and like you, I put him on top.
Yeah, I like New Century a little bit more than you do overall, but I think that looking at that last race, I would want Test Score out of there more so, and I think that he's going to have the jump on a horse like New Century in this spot.
Yeah. Now, we'll take a look at the morning line favorite, Final Gambit, who he absolutely can win this race, and this is his Jeff Ruby. But I can't speak for you. I feel as though the idea of taking a horse as the favorite that has not proven to have real turf ability, and to expect him to be equitalented on every surface and take him as a favorite against some pretty good horses, I just think he's a bad gamble as the favorite. But I'm not going to be shocked when he runs well in this race.
I think he's improved overall. I think that he ran well to finish 4th in that Kentucky Derby, but I think that from a pace standpoint, he is the one that is probably the most impacted in here because at the short price he's likely to be, we don't know how capable he is on the grass, but we do have the idea that on most surfaces, he is not a horse to have any early speed. He's one that likes to rally from far back, and he was with Race Dynamics in that Kentucky Derby. I just thought that he was going to be overbet in this spot and wanted to look elsewhere, but I don't think that I have some sort of big problem with his level of ability. I just don't think this race necessarily sets up for him or wanting to place a bet on
I
him.
think that Flavian is well aware of the pace scenario, and I think he won't be out the back door in here. Not that you said he would be. So I won't be surprised if he's not as prepared. And, as far as his debut on the turf, I wouldn't go so far as say he should have won. He jumped up at the start, and he caused his own problems. He didn't at the start, actually. And he did save ground for most of the race and was very green in there. And to be fair, his subsequent efforts on synthetic got very similar figures. So I think there's a real argument that he's just come to life in his last few starts. But the two best races he ran, he got the benefit of a pace that was very, very much in his favor, particularly in the Jeff Ruby. And so while he may not be as pace compromised, he's not going to have a pace that's going to make the race for him.
It's not going to melt down completely.
We'll see what happens with him. Now, as far as Luther, and I'll take a look at him running fourth in the race two back, which is the French Guineas. You can easy to see because he has those bright yellow silks out there. He's actually pretty close there, lugging in a little bit right there. I think he's like right in the outside. Is he the one on the far outside? At this point, I think he's between him. Yes, that's him in the yellow. He's the one coming between. And you can say hung a little bit towards the late stages, but he's quote-unquote hanging in this race behind horses like Henri Matisse, who ran second to that monster of Judmont's in the St. James's Palace after winning this race, and Camilo Pissarro was third, who came back and won the French Derby in the next start. And I think Luther just found the distance last time to be way too far for him. I think this is going to hit him right between the eyes. I do not agree with David. I don't see any chance this horse is 6-1 in here. I don't know how an accomplished Group 1 European is going to be the distant fourth choice in this race. If I'm wrong, I'll bet this horse over test score.
Do you think that he'll be a shorter price than New Century, or do you think that he'll just be much lower?
Test score, New Century, and him will be similar prices.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't know how short Final Gambit's going to be. It's a reasonable discussion. It's not. We don't bore people with it for a long time up here. But I think there's going to be a lot more. I think these four horses will be closer in price.
I think there's more European turf love than there is for Deep Closer, who finished fourth in the Derby. Yeah. But I could be completely wrong about that. So I see where David's going, but I'm kind of with you on that one.
I think this horse, I think 6-1 would be the overlay of the century, to be honest. Maybe not the century, but be a big overlay. Race number 10, the Suburban, presented by Suburban. Is it Suburban? So, Locked. Let's take a look at Locked. If Locked runs this race, he's going to win. But I think, Sarah, there are a lot of reasons to be a little bit leery of him. And I know that the pace in the Ali Sheba was way against him. But I do think it's important to note that Fierceness, who won, was supposed to run in the Westchester, and Todd wanted to run Locked in the Ali Sheba, and he did not run very well. And I don't want to hear the distance argument.
He was bad.
He won the Cigar Mile. He was bad last time, and I wonder a little about his recent works. I'm concerned.
He was extremely disappointing in that last race, and I don't think it's just as simple as the pace not working out to his benefit, because he's a horse that's been able to make his own trip when need be and hasn't had these suicidal paces collapsing where he's able to be the only closer. He's run well in the Cigar Mile, he ran well in the Pegasus, and then he crushed in that Santa Anita handicap, and then he fell a little flat last time. And I just don't want to take him at what's going to be a short price in here off of that last race. If he was coming in off of that Santa Anita handicap, he'd probably be a much shorter price, and I'd pick him on top.
Absolutely. And I had done that podcast earlier this week, and I had picked Locked, and it just was bothering me literally for 2 days that he's not a horse that I feel comfortable putting on top. I'm rooting for Eclipse Partners. They've been so great with journalism, and I also am rooting for good horses to be good horses. And Locked is a horse that if he runs his good race, he's a player in the division. So I hope that he runs well in here. I just can't pick him. What is the Bendug story?
Well, I think both of us were looking for an alternative to putting Locked on top, and you went with one.
Right, I haven't got one that's very fast either.
And I ended up going with Disarm, who would at least be a little bit more forward. And then looking at Ben Dugan here, I wasn't ever really his biggest fan, not in love like the way Maggie was in love with this horse, but I thought that he ran okay with maybe an overconfident ride in the Suburban last year when he finished second as a big favorite behind Krupe, never saving ground at any point in that race and just always being towards the outside and there. And I thought that he was the one that would get the jump on horses like Anna Marie, like Locked, and not have to be right up and on the pace like Phileas Fogg, Antiquariat, or even Awesome Aaron. I thought he was just going to be the one that I wanted to sit the right kind of trip.
Well, I don't think he has that much speed, but we'll see where he is in here. I think he'll be somewhere back with Locked in this race, but we'll
Really?
see. Yeah, I don't think he's
Okay.
going to be that forward here. Well, you got to realize something. There's legitimate forward horses in this race. This isn't like last year's race. This is a race where you've got, and we'll take a look at Phileas Fogg and Awesome Aaron in the Pimlico Special, and you can even throw an Antiquarian. It's take a look at the Pimlico Special. This is not a race devoid of speed. Now, Awesome Aaron, it's funny, I was talking to Norm after, and some people remember, not the nitwits that say that time only matters in jail. There were a number of people that mad at those of us that correctly pointed out that he ran a second faster in Torpedo Anna that day. Oddly, they didn't point that out after the La Troyenne and Awesome Aaron's next race. But this was a very, very, very fast race, and he took his form at Oaklawn and he transferred it to the Pimlico Special, and he did it rating. And Norman felt he's a horse that probably needs to be forward. But he ran well, and so did Phileas Fogg, who's got... Now, the rail isn't that big an advantage here because the race starts at the 8th pole. So it's not like a mile and eighth race where the rail is not a significant advantage in a two-turn race here. But just based on their last race and the fact that, horses had trouble closing yesterday, I think to be completely dismissive of either of these horses is a mistake.
Yeah, no, I think that they both have a shot in here, and I think that I just wonder how much speed is an Antiquarian going to show coming in after being forwardly placed in his last start. If they try to have him be one that is up and involved early on in this race, I don't
He'll
think
be
he's
third.
necessarily fast enough, but I just wonder what the intention's going to be.
He's going to sit third, right? I mean, he's a horse that's forwardly placed, right? Who's possibly going to be in front of him besides the 1 and 8?
That's it, but I just wonder if they're going to try to go with
No,
horses.
they're not going to run with those two horses. That would be crazy. But I think he'll be forwardly placed, and he might be in a good position. And if the other two start faltering, I mean, I didn't pick Antiquarian up high, but I have smart friends that like him, and I can understand the argument for him. I'm not sure he didn't run better than Mystic Dan last time, frankly. You got that trip up the rail. He was more engaged in the quick pace in there and was still game at the end. I think there's a very good argument, the more I look at it, that he is the second likeliest winner behind Locked.
I wonder how far he wants to go, ultimately. And I
Okay.
think that he's one that this is going to be, if many of these horses show up, this is going to be a tougher test than what he's faced against some of the races where he's been more successful in the
It's
past.
fair, but I think his last race was pretty good. And it's not like Mystic Dan was terrible in the
No, he
Foster.
ran fine.
It was obviously a little over his head, but he ran well in there. Honor Marie.
You've
We'll take a
gone
look
back.
at his last race. I don't love Honor Marie. I'm not going to tell you I'm going to make a big bet on this horse because I'm not. But I have questions about the forward horses. I think your point about Antiquarian, perhaps I'm being good, is a very valid one. And I wonder if this is a race that horses won't be able to run. Now, obviously, he's going to have to make a move from the back of the pack. But you're talking about a horse that didn't run badly in the Belmont Stakes in a mile and a quarter here
I thought
last
he ran
year.
great in the Belmont, given
I
the
mean, considering the track that
circumstances.
day and who he was running against, I'm
And who
not
they are
sure
now.
that's not the kind of effort that he duplicates here, gives him a heck of a chance. And, you look at that race, I know Timeout ran badly the 2 mile off the turf race, but in the slop, I don't want to hold that against him. I thought that was actually a pretty good race last time out. And I actually think if you look at it, maybe a mile and a half he was getting a little late in there, moving up, and a mile and a quarter might hit him right between the eyes. I don't love him. He's a big price in here in a race where I am skeptical about a lot of horses. So I wouldn't say I defaulted to him, but he's kind of my anti-pick at a price.
He's the
And I don't love
interesting
him.
one because he has some perhaps sturdied up form where he ran very well in that Belmont, and then he didn't show up at all in the Travers. I think I picked him and lost some money on him that day, and then he was off for quite some time. So perhaps something going wrong in that race that you can make the excuse for. Then coming in off the layoff,
And-
that
well-
race was won by good horses that were forward, and then he stretches out and wins last
But
time.
I'll also say something else. If the favorite is the horse to beat in this race, which he is, and you like Ben Dug, we're all discussing the possibility of this race coming apart a bit. Because if you're somebody who likes Locked in here, you're not expecting the speed to hold on. Now, you could say, well, I think he's the best horse, and that's all good and fair, but he's still going to be coming from behind. So why can't it be somebody else?
Sure, and that's sort of what led me to Ben Dug because I don't think he's going to be as far back as Locked and Anna Marie, but he's not going to be right up and on the pace either. I think he's going to be the one that's right in between those and gets the jump on those two. But again, it could turn out that he's just never really faced horses that are quite as quick early and good as the ones that he's going to be running into today.
Race number 11 is the Harvey Pack, named for my great friend Harvey Pack, and a great friend to so many here. And I feel like, and I think Harvey would agree with this is a race for the horse players. I mean, this is a way of sort of saying thanks, because Harvey was one of the world's greatest friends of the horse players. He's a man, if you're not familiar with him, you missed out, and you should go on YouTube and dig up some of his old shows. But he's the father of simulcasting in many ways. He used to do between races on the weekends in New York. He would have different guests on between the races to come up and talk about the races. He started the show at Sports Channel back around 1980, where they showed the replays at night. Every night, showing the replays, bringing people's home. He brought in great guests, many handicappers, all the local New York people, and a lot of very, very good handicappers on there as well. And then, you know, he was working in simulcasting when they did the Prattles in New York. And then after he left NYRA, he went over to work for DRF, and I had the pleasure of working with him at the DRF seminars, which were the greatest handicapping seminars in the history of horse racing. And Harvey played a big role, and he was a great wit and just an all-around funny guy and smart guy. And the fact that I don't like him, but Steve Christ, who was great friends with Harvey, won this race in the first running with Thin White Duke. And now there's a horse in their name for the late, great Pete Axthelm. And Harvey and Pete were very close friends. They worked together in the early Breeders' Cup broadcasts as well. Many will remember their video taking on the 85, taking the A train out to Aqueduct. You know, for those of us lucky enough to have known Axe, he was truly one of the real good guys that we lost way too soon. But I think it's pretty cool that Axthelm's running it here. So if they're coming down the wire and Axthelm beats me, I'll have him in the exacta, and I'll have a smile on my face for my good friend Harvey. We'll talk about Witty. And once again, to not sound like a broken record, this horse is coming in here off a huge win in a turf sprint on a bog. And I have a feeling that this horse moved up on the course.
I agree with you. I think this is one that, yes, he has that back class. He's that half-sibling to Caravelle, who is an accomplished turf sprinter herself. But I just wonder if he is one that looks better because of that last race where he's out in the middle. You can see him giving all that momentum in there. I just don't think that he's going to be one that wins quite like that this time, or is going to show up with that kind of figure over a course like this against some of the company he's facing today.
This is a very, very tricky race. Felix and Works for me. I think David sort of made the 4-1 and 5-1 along with Witty. And if David gets this race half right, he deserves a medal, because this is a crazy, crazy tough race. I don't have any knock, and I think one of the good things to think about Works for me and Felix is they're kind of the now horse coming in here on some other horses that have run better races, but their current form's a little bit dubious.
Right, and maybe they're going to be better prices, but they also should be based on their recent efforts relative to what we've seen lately from horses like Works for Me and Felix. And I think that this, coming off the layoff, Works for Me ran well. He ends up being what's a close photo finish in there. And then I just thought he got a great trip to win last time over Antares. He was able to save ground with Flavien Prat, even though he didn't get out of the gate all that well. And it was just such a tale of different trips between him and the horses that finished second and third in that spot. But he draws well again, and here he's the horse that's coming in with consistent good form, and it's not as though it came out of nowhere. He was talented last year.
I had the 7-5. I could pick a lot of horses in this race. There aren't going to be a lot of big surprises. I'm not sure Bring the Band Back Home, or Band Home, might not prove the horse to beat, and we'll take a look at him running second last time when they rated him, and Axtell running fourth. I think there's a good chance this horse is gone on the front end.
I think this horse is the speed of the speed, and we've seen that happen when this one has come and run at Saratoga in the past, able to take a field gate to wire a couple starts ago. I just wonder if he's one that he wasn't running quite as quickly over his couple of starts in between that race at Saratoga and that last effort. And he was also on the lead in there, but maybe it's just a situation where that pace ended up taking a little bit of a toll on him.
He has not been clear on the front end since his win at Saratoga, and he is the fastest horse early in this race. What am I missing about Surveillance?
I just think he's been facing the best horses and actually coming into this race in much better form than he was last year. He's one that's shown up with efforts that can at least be similar to the races that he's run on the dirt in the past. I like them putting the blinkers on him, and then looking at this one coming in, I just thought that he's going to be running into some horses that are not quite the same level of company on the dirt, but at the same time, he can run that race on the grass as well. We've seen it in the past.
No, he can't. No? I could not possibly disagree with you more. I think this horse is absolute fool's gold, and you're not the only person that likes this horse, and I just completely disagree. This horse, only really good turf race was for Flying P here last year, and as you may recall, their horses were running pretty well, and I would say that his race in the Harvey Pack was significantly worse than that race. 2 races after that, and I think if you look at his turf sprints, the only race that would give him a chance would be that win here for Flying P. And listen, I could be wrong, and he's a price. And listen, they're playing races. You're right, and I'm wrong. But I don't like this horse at all.
I think you could also make the argument that he was going into that race where he ran the 94 Buyer off of races that were slower than what he's coming into this race with, and his race after that, switching back to the dirt and the Bold Ruler, was not one of his better dirt races either. And then he was able to switch barns yet again, and just wasn't in the same kind of form. I agree that it's an outlier,
but you're right
but
about
he is
that.
one that is coming into this race on better dirt form overall than he was last time.
Okay. I'm going to use 2 horses here. I am a little scared of Our Shot. You know, maybe he'll refine that form fluid situation for this barn. Ran a much better race last time out yesterday on this course. Mischievous Angel is a turf sprinter. And so I'm happy to take this horse cutting back, and I actually think he's run okay. I mean, last time he wasn't winning stalking like that at a mile. He wants to go less, so I love the turn back for him, but I'm also scared of the 11 American Monarch on the outside. Jose Lezcano has done well with this horse in the past, which I'm guessing is why Junior's off. I am a fan of Junior Alvarado's riding. I thought his last race was not the ride I would have given him if I could possibly stay on a horse for over 2 seconds. This is a horse that has done well being more forward. He is not a plotter. He broke well, and Junior just took him out of the race. Now, he may have been riding to instructions, so I'm not looking to criticize him, but I thought he ended up way too far back in that race, and he actually didn't run that badly in there. Now, I know he's a little tough to trust, but this is a horse that has some good turf races on the go back.
Yeah.
I just thought he was interesting as a long shot in what I think is a wide open race.
This race is so open. I mean, you can make the case for several in here, and I think even I don't particularly like Axe Them like we were talking about, or a horse like Outlaw Kid, but on a certain day, those are horses that could absolutely compete in here. And
that's
then
fair.
I thought Mischievous Angel as well. Cutting back, Jorge Abreu has great numbers on the turf.
You obviously like him too.
6 for 29. 31% in the money, $2.79 ROI, turf turnbacks at Naira over the past 5 years. So this is something he does very well with, and I think this horse will appreciate a lot less distance.
All right.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Sarah. Great job as always. Thank you for watching. Head over to Naira Bets. Here's the present for you. Bonus 200. You probably haven't heard this one before. Use the promo code. That was wait. Which? Oh, we're not on. They're showing us on the in-house TVs. It got a little disconcerted there. You weren't paying attention, so you're fine.
I'm okay.
Bonus 200.
I'm going to ignore it.
Use the promo code and we'll match them at $200 of your initial deposit. And then you'll get all revved up for the Saturday contest tomorrow. Flavian will not be playing. I know he'd like to, but he won't be allowed to play. Register at nairabets.com/contest. You have till post time tomorrow. $300 buy-in. BCBC seat up for grabs in there as well, and that is a $10,000 value. So a special reason to be playing the Saturday contest, which you must play through Naira Bets. Money back guarantee, $10 to win on the Belmont Derby. Run second and third, get your money back. So there you go, Belmont Derby, special there. Opt in over at Naira Bets for that one. We have a cross-country Big Five. Eddie's all geared up. You didn't waste your time, Eddie, looking at Horseshoe Indy, the Clarksville and the William Garrett. And then 3 stakes here, 3:08 until about 6:08, probably somewhere right around there.
I think
so
that's
about
a good
3
guess.
hours of action in that cross-country Big Five. And you ready for this one? FS2 from 1 to 3. We'll stick on YouTube from 3 to 4, 4 to 4:30 on back on FS2. There's no race between 4:30 and 5. Don't worry, you will not miss a thing. We'll be on Big Fox from 5 to 6, and then we'll be on FS1 from 6 to 7. My mother's excited she gets to watch today.
Oh, yeah, she only has FS1, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Believe it or not, Lucy is not a huge sports fan.
Really?
She'll watch. No, actually, she likes basketball, and she'll watch with me, but she's not on her own.
She's not watching the show every single day. You've been on long enough that the lust is
even my mother's
gone
bored.
away.
Even my
Yeah.
mother's bored with me,
I
which
hear ya.
frankly is a
You know what? I
credit
don't
to
blame her at this
I
time.
don't blame her at all. Are you kidding me? But I didn't tell her it was on today, so she'll probably watch. We're done. But the day's just getting started, and our man, the voice of Saratoga, Frank Miramati, is up next with a reprise of the Scratches and Changes. Have a great day.
Horse racing? Check. Weekly promotions? Got 'em. Huge payouts? You bet. With Naira Bets. Download the app today and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime with live HD horse races, betting tips and tutorials, expert picks, and more. You bet with Naira Bets. Join now for a new member bonus at NairaBets.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we ask that you please rise and remove your caps as we direct your attention to the winner's circle as well as the flagpole in the infield. Happy 4th of July. It's Independence Day, and we're pleased to have with us for the national anthem, Journey Bever.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Journey Bever, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Independence Day and welcome to the July 4th Racing Festival at Saratoga Racecourse. The track is fast, the turf is firm. Here are the changes. In the first, start of the early pick 5, scratch number 2, 13 red flags, and scratch number 9, She's Cool. The second is the 107th running of the Skylerville, and there are no changes. In the third, take out the 1A, Sheriff Bianco. There is a pick 5 starting with race 3. A middle pick 4 starts with the 4th, where there are no program changes.